order wrong at McDonald's or somewhere like that. And yes, I did not mean to put McDonald's in there and try to put them on blast on my podcast, but it happens at any restaurant. Yes. And they get your order wrong, and then you leave and you are in the drive-through. So you just say, I'm just going to go ahead and eat this. It happens. It happens to all of us. Imagine a doctor getting your diagnosis wrong. And for some people, and it has happened before, they went ahead and said, well, I'm going to go ahead and accept this. Well, our guest today, Dr. Lycka, said, I'm not going to accept this at all. And his diagnosis, if he did accept it, he wouldn't have had a chance to turn back around. We are going to be back with Dr. Lycka right after this.
Do you have the next big thing? That world-changing whatchamacallit? Do you have a story to tell? You need a show-stopping web presence. You need the web spinners at Webinet. With big picture solutions, spinning together SEO, stellar web design, blogging, podcasts, and social media integrations, you'll find yourself developing your latest and greatest thing, idea, or telling that next chapter in your story. Look us up today at webinet.com, and remember, you're not everywhere unless you're Webinet.
Hello and welcome back to the 4Ps podcast. Getting orders wrong. You know, there's a couple times I'm on the road quite a bit and I'll drive and I'll be on the interstate. I'll stop by McDonald's. I'll stop by Wendy's. I'll stop by Burger King, Chick-fil-A if they have one. I'll try to stop by any fast food place and I will go and get something to go. Obviously, I'm going through the drive-through. I want to hurry up and get it done. I want to keep on moving forward. And sometimes they mess up your order. But by the time you realize the order is messed up, you're back on the interstate. You're probably 2 or 3 exits down the road before you realize that they messed it up. Some people, I've seen it happen before, and I don't know why these people get on my nerves, even though they're doing the right thing. They will stop. They will check their order before they leave that drive-through window. And you know what? Those guys are awesome. But you know, sometimes we actually go into situations where we treat very important diagnosis, decisions, everything like we treat an order in the drive-through, and we don't turn around. We don't say this is wrong. We don't have them redo it. And you know, there have been instances, and you're going to find out here on this episode, there are instances where those misdiagnoses, those orders, so to speak, can lead to a fatality. And we're here today talking to Dr. Alan Lycka. Dr. Alan Lycka, he is from Edmonton, Alberta. He is a happy, happy man. I know before we started our conversation in our interview and went live, we talked about the CFL, which is now over. Almost over. And we had a great conversation. He's a fantastic man. He has a lot of joy. We will be back with Dr. Alan Lycka right after this. You know, I want to thank you for your continued support on the 4Ps podcast. This podcast is growing every single day. And just recently, I found out that there is an autonomous region in the English Channel named Jersey. And the reason why I found out that there's this region is because there are people listening to the podcast in that area. And I want to thank you so much for your support. If you enjoy the 4Ps podcast and you enjoy stories similar to the ones you hear on the podcast, you will love the book, The 4Ps of You. The 4Ps of You is a collection of stories that deal with those 4Ps, and those Ps are purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. These are a great way to build that foundation and go forward in planning life and finding your meaning and finding your purpose. That is the 4Ps of You. It is available on Amazon. It is available at Barnes & Noble here in the United States. It is also available at Chapters and Indigo Bookstore in Canada. It is available in the UK. It is available all around the world. You can find it. And you know what? I'm going to make sure that it is in Jersey. That is the 4Ps of You. Please get it. Please read it. And thank you for your continued support. Welcome back. Like I said in the first part of the segment, that this is a episode where we refuse to take no as an answer. And the individual that I have on today was diagnosed with a disease that a lot of people say, "Oh my gosh, that's it." And he refused to take that as an answer. And he refused to do, I want to say he did listen to his doctor's orders, but he's also doing and still living his life. It's not over for him in any way, shape, or form. He is from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. I love that area. Western Canada has some of the toughest people in North America. And Dr. Alan Lycka, welcome to the show, doctor. How are you doing?
I am great. Thank you for having me, Tunis. It is such a pleasure to be here. In fact, it's quite a pleasure to be anywhere when you hear my story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to go in and your story is I want you to tell your story, but I want to know your reaction. I know earlier this year, I had a doctor give me, hey, I have something to tell you conversation. And I'm going to tell you right now, it scared the hell out of me. It made me rethink, and those days are now over, thank God. And I've been able to work with with my ailment and work with it fine. I'm still living quite a normal life. What was your reaction when you heard your diagnosis? And first of all, tell everybody what the diagnosis is.
Well, I was diagnosed with ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. And that is uniformly a death sentence. I was told, get your affairs in order, Dr. Lycka. You have 6 months to live. Now, I immediately questioned the diagnosis. I said, is there a way to prove this diagnosis? And the bonehead neurologist said, of course, on autopsy.
God.
Now, I laugh at that now, but boy, that hit me like a ton of bricks. And I stormed out of his office. I slammed the door and I said, I'm not going to die to prove you wrong. I went to my car and I cried for hours. Somehow I made it home and I told my wife the diagnosis and she said, no, you don't have that. My wife's a doctor as well. She said, I don't know what you have, but you don't have that. But you know what happens when you're told you're going to die? You go through the phases of death and dying that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote in her book on death and dying. You go through anger. You're angry at the world. You literally can bite the head off nails. I was angry at my wife. I was angry at my children. I was angry at my staff. I was angry at my dog. But, you just kept on going, even though this anger, and everybody knew I was seething. You go through bargaining. Oh, God, please don't let this happen. I'll do anything if you don't let this happen. But I didn't think he was listening back then. You go through denial. Denial. You deny that anything's wrong. And my right leg wasn't working. It had developed a right foot drop, but then my right arm wasn't working. And I was a right-handed surgeon. I was one of the best. Now, a right-handed surgeon can't operate without his right hand. But I was smart. I was ambidextrous, so I learned to be a left-handed surgeon. I taught myself to tie knots with my left hand. I taught myself to use my laser with my left hand. I developed left-handed tools because none existed back then. And left-handed scissors are different than right-handed scissors. Right. Well, they didn't exist for surgeons back then. So I'd go to the machine shop at the hospital, say, well, could you do a mirror image of this pair of scissors? I need this. And they'd do it for me. And then you go through depression. Depression is the worst. Tunis, have you ever been depressed?
Yeah, once in a while. But your depression, my depression and your depression are totally different because...
Well, mine was terrible. I would lie in bed all day saying, I'm not getting out of bed today. Why? I'm going to die anyhow. I don't need to live. I don't need to get out of bed. You know, you stare at the ceiling, just not doing anything. You can't eat. You can't sleep. Days become nights. Night becomes days. And I had a plan to kill myself because I wasn't going to die drowning in my secretions like I'd seen other people do with ALS. Being a doctor, I've seen that. So I said to my wife, dear, I can't take this anymore. I don't know what I have. She said, you're smart. You're going to figure that out. And I said to my wife, how? I've seen hundreds of doctors. She said, well, you probably haven't seen the right doctor yet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, back in the early 2000s, something new was invented. You might have heard about it. It's called the internet. Ever hear about that, Tudis?
A little bit.
Yeah, it's sort of a little bit every minute of every day these days. But, you know, back then you had to get on with dial-on connections. You had to put your phone in a cradle and it would go ria, ria, ria for 15 minutes. And if it got to the other side, you would finally connect with people over there. And you didn't have Dr. Google. You didn't have Dr. Yahoo back then. You just had this, you know, hey, you had DOS to communicate. And friends would take me to the other side. And the internet was just like it is now, in that the world was great, but it's full of garbage cans. It's full of the best resources in garbage cans. And they helped to keep me away from the garbage cans. And they found a doctor in Colorado Springs, Colorado, that had a story very similar to mine, Dr. David Martz. But he got worse much more rapidly. He was on his deathbed within 2 weeks of his diagnosis. And so what happened is he was so loved by so many people. People came from around the world to say goodbye to David. And a Dr. Harvey came up from Texas, and he looked at David and said, David, I don't think you have ALS. David whispered, because that's all he could do, what do I have? The doctor said, I think you have chronic Lyme's disease. I think you've been bitten by a tick. You're an outdoorsy person, and it mimics ALS. David said, what do I do? The doctor said, I'm going to start you on treatment, and if I'm right, you're going to get rapidly better. And he was like Lazarus arising from the dead. So within 2 weeks, he was dancing. He was doing everything he did before.
So this is a man that was about ready to die.
Yes, this is a man that was on his deathbed.
And he, within 2 weeks, it was because of a diagnosis, a misdiagnosis. There was no treatment. And if the other doctor did not approach him,
he would have died. And I'll guarantee people are dying from ALS right now because they're misdiagnosed. I'll guarantee it, because the same thing would have happened to me. So I got in touch with David Marks. I got on a plane to Denver, Colorado, talked, and he was in a little town just outside of Denver, Colorado. I flew there, and we talked for hours. And he said, Dr. Lycka, I think history is repeating itself. I think I can start you on treatment, and that's why I'm here. 20 plus years after my death sentence, I had chronic Lyme's disease. I still have a right arm that doesn't work right. I still have a right leg that doesn't work right. But guess what? I'm alive. I can do everything that I could do before. And I go around the world speaking about happiness and goodness and how attitude makes all the difference.
Absolutely. So, you know, what your story is just, it's amazing. It absolutely is amazing in every sense of the word. When you go out talking to people, I know there's a lot of people that get, this doesn't have to just be about a disease. It could be there are so many different quote unquote death sentences that we get in life that we feel it's over, failure. It's over because of, that
word failure is based on the word fear. And you
Mhm.
can, it means two things. It means face everything and rise, or forget everything and run. You have a choice to do
Absolutely.
one of those things. I suggest everybody face everything and rise instead of forget everything and run.
So when you talk to people about not moving forward and making modifications and again, like I said in the very beginning of the segment, not accepting the word no. What are some of the key? What are some of the things that you went through? I know you said you didn't want to die and you weren't going to die. You did go through that depression. Your wife was extremely instrumental. I could tell this,
Oh, my
and
wife is a
yeah,
rock. My right wife is a rock. She is just the most amazing person. As I say, she's a doctor. She's a family doctor, and
okay,
she takes care of some of the worst things that you could ever imagine. And she now does it by telehealth rather than in-person health, but she is a rock. She loves doing what she's doing every day of her life.
yeah.
And we've been together, we've been married for 43 years. We've been together for 45 years. So it truly is an amazing thing. Uh, it is an amazing thing that we go through. And I love what she does for me. And I love what I do for her.
Absolutely.
We are so a pair and we basically take care of each other. But when I go around the world speaking, I'm always amazed by how people come up to me. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was speaking at a university and a girl in the front row began crying. And she talked about the fact that her father had ALS and died.
Mhm.
I sat beside her, I comfort her, I listened to her story, and I literally went through the process with her. And when she walked away, she had a new view on life. She had a new appreciation for life. She knew that, the celebration of life that they had for her father was a celebration of life.
Mhm.
He literally enjoyed a fantastic life.
And it's funny that it's obvious the care and the love that the daughter still had. You could tell that there was a fantastic life after that because there's that. Now my thing is, I'm still stuck on this. I have to go back to the misdiagnose misdiagnosis of ALS, and the fact that you truly believe, and now I truly believe, since you gave me two stories, and there was that's the case. There was another person who was documented, and I forgot the woman's name, and she was actually healed from her diagnosis through bee stings, bee venom. Did you ever hear you? Do you know who I'm talking about? Because I
I've heard a lot of things about a lot of things. Uh, I take them all with a grain of salt because I think certain things will help and certain things will hurt. I
Mhm.
certainly am not in the diagnosis and treatment mode, so I'm not here to give advice to people,
Right.
but I do suggest people get a second opinion if they've
Mhm.
been diagnosed with a bad malady. I do suggest that they check out all avenues for themselves because, no matter what you need to do, and you need to also understand that what you do makes a lot of difference. Your attitude towards things makes a difference.
Absolutely. And that is one of the most important things is your attitude. I know that there are a lot of people who live very long lives, and they shouldn't, but because of their attitude, they see tomorrow. I know this. There was an individual I was talking to years ago. He was 98 years old, and he was the athletic director at his independent living home. And I said, what keeps you going? And he told me, he says, I always look forward to tomorrow. He says, the day I stop looking forward to tomorrow is the day I probably won't get up. And that's what he said. And you said something even in here that there was a time when you were depressed and you were looking up at the ceiling and nights turned into days and days turned into nights. What finally got you out of that depression? What got you out of that stage?
What got me out was my wife saying, you haven't found the right doctor yet. She gave me hope. She said, get out of your funk. You are putting yourself in your funk. You literally can choose your choice. You can choose your own reality. You do not have to follow that reality. So I said, okay, let me check out all the options here. And so I did. I literally went on a journey looking at other people that have been through this. And so that's how I was able to find what there is. And I was able to figure out what there was. And I was able to find an alternative for the reality that had been given to me.
Wow. Now you are still a doctor. Are you still a surgeon or are you just...
No, I retired in 2019 to help people now. I'm the doctor of happiness and positivity now. I'm the doctor that'll give you a new reality.
And as far as speaking engagements, I know you speak all around the world. Where are you going to be next, if you don't mind sharing?
I'm speaking in New Orleans next week, and the month after that, I'm speaking in Phoenix.
Wow. So you are coming down here from Edmonton, where it is going to be cold there in about the next 15 to 20 minutes, and you're coming down here to the nice warmth of the southern U.S.
suspect it's going to last here till Halloween. Halloween is the drawing point usually for us, where we start to get our first snowfall. So, it can stay nice a lot longer, but there's no predicting. So I extend my fall by going south.
Great. So now, are you a snowbird, or do you stay even in the wintertime? Do you stay up in?
We always break up our winter a little bit by taking a winter vacation. So my wife and I just booked a trip to Maui not Maui, to actually Mexico this year. Okay. We're going to the Pacific coast and we'll spend a week there. And I've been given a speaking opportunity in March in Costa Rica on his happiness. So I'll probably go to that as well.
You know what I love is that if you would have accepted what your doctor said 20 some odd years ago, you would not be blessing my audience and gracing my audience with moving forward and making sure that you always get a second opinion on anything in life. Not only is it medical, but professional, relationship wise. Always reach for that second opinion and never accept things at face value. Always do your research, and I really appreciate that. And the other thing I love is that you are now the doctor of happiness. And that is great because we really do need this. This has been a year that can definitely bring a tear to many people's eyes. And I appreciate that you are doing this. I'm going to have your website and contact information. Anything that you want to share with the audience before we go?
Well, a couple of things. I want everybody to realize it's not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens. That is the most important thing you'll ever learn. Also, one thing that drives the universe is paying it forward, doing things for others that you wouldn't do normally. And I challenge every audience I speak at to pay it forward, to give something to somebody else. I was in Minneapolis coming back from Sandusky, Ohio, a little while back, and I stopped at Chick-fil-A, one of my favorite restaurants. And I was standing at a counter, and I ate, and I saw a girl playing on her phone next to me. And I said, "Aren't you going to eat?" And she said, "I guess so." And she said it in such a tone, I knew something was wrong. And I said, "Can I buy you lunch?" And she said, "Sir, you have no idea what you're doing for me." She said, "I'm flying from Los Angeles back to New York. I'm going to my father's funeral. There was enough money to get me airfare, but there wasn't enough money to pay for incidentals. I haven't eaten since this morning, and I'm starving." I said, "What would you like?" And I bought her lunch, and she was so overjoyed. There are a million people around us like that. Open your heart, open your soul. We have so much. It doesn't take much to do something like that. As the Spanish say, de nada, it's nothing. Give something to everybody every day. Give something, a little piece of yourself. It'll make the world a better place.
Yes, it would. And that was a small gesture. I mean, it was a very small gesture, but it meant so much to someone who was going through so much at the time. And it did. It was, that's a beautiful gesture. Thank you for sharing that story.
So I'd say, if you want to find out more about me, go to my website, drallenlycka.com. That's DRALLEN, Lycka, LY as in yellow, CKA, drallenlycka.com. And if you need a speaker for your event, if you need somebody to put happiness and positivity in your business or your event to make it special, check out my speaking site, Dr. L Speaks. That's DRAL Speaks, SPEAKS.com. Love to talk to you.
Absolutely. We will have both of the websites and both links in the podcast notes. So once you are done listening to this podcast and listening to such a powerful story, make sure you click on those links and you can get directly to Dr. Lycka. Dr. Lycka, it was fantastic having you on the program. We will be right back right after this.
Want a financial detective who translates your money into clear insights and understands your vision? Meet Rose Knows Bookkeeping. Free up your time and get peace of mind with accurate, up-to-date finances. Let Rose handle the numbers while you focus on success. Contact Rose Knows Bookkeeping today.
Hello, 4Ps audience. I'm here to share a book titled Stories of Children Lost. As you know, back in June of 2015, I lost my daughter, Kayla Noel Goggins. As a result, I went through the darkest time of my life. Didn't know who to talk to, didn't know what resources to find. Losing a child is a very unnatural thing. There's not a lot of resources out there to help people navigate through that time. But as time went on, I met other people who lost their children and talked to them. And actually, I joined a club I didn't want to join, but I joined this club of people who really care, who really want to help people navigate through this dark time. I decided that I wanted to put together a book with authors who've lost their child in different ways and show how they went and they were able to navigate through the darkness and live in a way that the legacy of their child lives on. This book is called, again, Stories of Children Lost. The proceeds, much of the proceeds are going towards scholarships and programs to help people in this time of loss. You can find this book on Amazon, and it's a great resource for people going through the worst time of their life. Again, the book is titled Stories of Children Lost. Find it on Amazon today. Welcome back to the final segment of today's 4Ps podcast. Can you imagine, seriously, getting a diagnosis, misdiagnosis, something that is equally fatal, okay? What he had would have killed him, absolutely would have killed him. But if he did not get a second opinion, he would have died. Even though he had what could have been a fatal ailment, He was in a situation where he had treatment and the treatment did help him. You know, a lot of people accept the first opinion as the final opinion. And it is by the grace of God that Dr. Alan Lycka did not accept that as the final opinion. And as a result, he is here helping so many people live a better life. Dr. Alan Lycka is now going throughout the world preaching and teaching joy. And you know, there is a difference between joy and happiness, okay? A lot of people are out there saying, you know, I need to find somebody who's going to make me happy. And then the moment they don't make you happy, you leave them or it's not working out and things like that. And you see that a lot in relationships. You know, I want a job that's going to make me happy. You see that a lot in jobs. And guess what? The first day they're not happy or the first week they're not happy. They're looking for another job because there is a drastic difference between joy and happiness. There is. Even the definitions by themselves are wrong. Joy is a constant state. You know, my children bring me joy, but I will tell you, and if you are a parent out there, you know exactly what I'm saying. They do not always make you happy, you know, and that's the way it is. I know, I hope I bring joy to people, but I know there's a lot of people that I deal with directly, family members for sure, that that does not bring that I do not bring them happiness all the time, but I do hope I can bring them a good level of joy. That was a great segment, and I am so happy that Dr. Alan Lycka is around to spread joy throughout the world, and I'm so glad he did not accept the initial diagnosis. We do not have to find out in an autopsy that the doctor was wrong because Dr. Alan Lycka made sure that he was wrong and did it while he was still above ground and not beneath it. You know, last week, actually on the 31st of October, so almost 2 weeks ago, we released the book Stories of Children Lost. It is it's an anthology with parents, who wrote stories, and they were very brave to do so and shared stories about losing their children. There's an article in there by my daughter's mother. There's also a chapter in there with me, and we wrote it. And then there are some resources in the book. It is a really strong book. The book finished number one, was a number one new release on Amazon. It was very successful in Canada. It hit number 2 in Canada, and it ranked in the top 10 in Great Britain and Australia and other nations across the world. And I absolutely I am humbled by this book. There are going to be a lot of programs that we are giving to. There are a list of programs that we're giving to help people going through the healing process. I do know that there is a scholarship that will be in my daughter's name and her name is Kayla Noel Goggins. The scholarship will go help people at various colleges throughout the country, throughout North America. I do know that we're working with community colleges right now across the country, and we're working with other universities to make sure that there are scholarships that are going to be given to children who have lost parents. Just help them. I know that is a very difficult time. You do absolutely need parents, and if you lose one, it is a very, troubling thing. But we are going to be doing these projects and all these things. There will be retreats in the future. A lot of things will be going to help people that have been affected by what we wrote in the book. Again, it's Stories of Children Lost, and I really do appreciate your support that you put in this book. And I was absolutely humbled by this past weekend and by the initial success of our book. And I do, again, I can't thank you enough as what you have done. We will be back with a story, not today, we'll be back later on. This podcast episode is coming to a close, but Peter Cook, when you hear his story and you hear what he has done, You will be motivated, and there's going to be some hope after you listen to that. If you are going through addiction, if you are a family member of someone going through addiction, the story of Peter Cook is going to really, really give you hope. We'll be back with Peter Cook's story, but right now, we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.